everybody, welcome to Current Cinema Podcast, Episode 8. We're going to talk all about John Wick 4, Chapter 4 to get specific. Well, gotta be specific if you're going to be a cinephile, dude.
Gotta be Pacific, dude.
Gotta be Pacific Ocean. So I'm Jeff, joined by Kyle, as always. This week we got Derek on because he saw and loved John Wick Chapter 4
the only person who would commit to watching John Wick, so thank you for doing that, because
I think there
are so many people in my life that are like, haven't seen it yet. I'm like, what's your problem? Like, what?
I know. Why?
I came to work to talk about this with you, or else I would have just called off all week, Like,
it's weird because it's like one of those movies that, for me, I'm such a huge fan of, first of all, Keanu Reeves in general, but like John Wick movies, that they're so big in my head that when I talk about them, I'm assuming everybody else is like, I saw that already.
That's such a badass way to word it, because that's exactly how I feel, and I don't know if I've ever been able to put it in those words.
In the group chat that I ran into an old bandmate. He used to be the front man for a band I was in my early 20s, and he was there with his whole family, and I was on my way to D&D, and I knew he was a gamer as well, and including tabletop, and I was like, oh, so you're here for D&D? And he was like, no, here for John Wick 4, and I was like, he's got like his kid with him who's like tiny. I'm like,
you're like, hell yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, they gotta know. Yeah.
But I was like, oh, dude, by the way, and this was on a Sunday. And I was like, by the way, dude, John Wick 4 is awesome. And he's like, oh, that's cool. That's good to hear that. But I thought it like just came out, and I'm like, yeah, dude, I had to see it right away. It's John Wick. Are you kidding?
Yeah,
like
you're and you're here too. So like, you're seeing it pretty quick too, buddy. Yeah.
Why are you surprised? I urgently needed to see such a badass movie. I don't understand.
No. This was like one of the most hype movies I think I've ever allowed myself to be hyped for. So like, like Derek was saying, like how big it was in my head. I'm like, well, this is as important to everybody else as it is to me, obviously. Like that's
exactly.
obviously
the case. I think the only movies that could compete as far as hype wise for me is probably Matrix Reloaded again.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because I didn't know when I was younger that I was gonna like Matrix as much as I ended up liking it.
Mm-hmm.
So Matrix Reloaded was blown up in my head. I couldn't wait to see that. And then probably The Dark Knight, like that trilogy. Like the first one, I actually really liked Batman Begins. So when I saw
if you don't, you're wrong. That's my stance on it.
So when I saw the Dark Knight previews and it was Joker and Heath Ledger, who I was a big fan of as well back then, I was like, I gotta see this immediately.
It's cool to hear that you were already on board, because as many people know, that there was such a controversial decision at the time where everyone was like, ooh, I don't want this pretty boy, 10 things I hate about you, like Boyd to be my Joker.
Knight's Tale guy.
It. Yeah, Knight's Tale guy. Yeah.
I think we put people in a box too much. Like I know
often, Same thing
when the
announcement.
I was just gonna bring him up. Like when I heard Robert Pattinson was playing Batman. Again, I don't jump to like, oh my God, this is stupid. But I was like, not my first pick. And mainly it was not because of just his background, but also like just even his looks. For me, like that's how shallow I am. But then when I watched the Batman, I was like, okay, he's really badass.
Yeah,
like he's really good. He's really good for this
He's
role,
the coolest Kurt Cobain Batman we've ever had in our lives.
Absolutely.
For sure.
He's a millennial
it didn't
Batman.
hurt that the director and the writers and everything, they made a Batman movie that fit his character and who he is as a person.
Yeah.
Like very emo, very dark, it was good.
It's super moody. Like the whole
very
thing is so
introverted.
moody.
That's the one thing I take away from interviews with Robert Pattinson is like he hates everything about having to talk to people. He's so introverted and so nervous all the time because he hates it. He hates it. And that's clearly the vision that they had for Batman was like, nobody talk to me. I'm just gonna beat people up.
Yeah.
And it was perfect. You mentioned Matrix Reloaded. I actually cut class. That was like in high school for me. So I cut class with my dad and my brother, I think, who was already out of school by then. I think I cut class for Matrix Reloaded. Yeah, that sounds about right. We saw it like in the morning, like Friday morning or something.
I remember seeing it opening night, Friday night, like 15 p.m. I'm not even kidding. Like, we had the whole row of people, and like we were rowdy. We were those people I hate in theaters today. We were very rowdy because it's high school, man.
That's funny you mentioned that. That's what I did for women talking. We were rowdy. No, I'm kidding.
The whole time, wow, that's great. Yeah.
Imagine that.
I can see how that'd get you there. Yeah.
This movie rules, man. I don't really have like a format for following, like starting.
I think we should just should we just lift the veil of spoilers so we can just get into it? I don't know who's showing up.
Oh yeah, we definitely should, because Spoilercast is going to be definitive because we already talked about it non-spoilery in current gen.
Yeah.
You can so we're just gonna spoil it right away and just say in 3, 2, 1. There's not going to be a John Wick 5. So
yeah. I mean, there's gonna be more John Wick universe stuff, but there may not be a 5.
Yeah, you know what's funny is like when we left the theater, my son was like, "So do you really think he's dead?" And I was like, "No, I don't think he's dead." And then I watched stuff afterwards, and I'm like, "Oh, I think he's dead." Like Keanu Reeves wanted to leave it up to the fans, but it sounds like the fans were like, the feedback he was getting was like, "We want you dead. We want other movies."
They said that they changed the ending because of like fan feedback for sure. Like I remember reading that too. And like I think thematically he's dead because he comes full circle as a character. But like also I feel like the movie was shot in a way and there's so many things said that like if they just were to bring him back alive, it'd be a total studio move or whatever. But there is room for that to happen.
There is. Because they just showed him collapsing on. They didn't have anybody check his pulse or anything.
No,
they
he
just
died off
showed
screen.
the next
Classic
scene
death
was
off
he's
screen,
in the ground. Like he's
and then he's like, "Well, do you think he's in heaven or hell?" And Ian McShane goes, "Who knows?" And then at the very end when they go, they say something about John, the dog like looks off screen as if like maybe John's just like right over there. There's plenty of stuff that it could allude that, but like thematically for the story's sake and for like themes coming to an end, he's dead because he has to be.
I'm not saying because I think I already said this on our video game podcast, which again, check us out there. But like, I think what I said was, the first 3 that most movies, like if you're going to do a series, you do a trilogy. We all know that. Books, movies, video games, you do a trilogy, you do 3. So those 3, in my opinion, while the third one is still my least favorite, I do need to rewatch it again, but I just remember it being my least favorite. It still was a really good trilogy.
Yeah.
That none of them were weak. All of them are good. They're all very good, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they could make this 4th movie and make it better, and in my opinion, I am not just because Jeff yelled at me in the video game podcast, but I like to process things. I didn't want to say the 4th one is the best, but I think it is the best as I've processed.
I do too. I was reluctant to say
as
it
I've
too.
Talked,
I get it,
as I talked to people about it, and I started going, that last third act, and I just kept talking about the third act without spoiling it, of course. I was like, dude, the fact that they made a movie that was easily on par with the first 3 and then took it to the next level in the last third of the movie, which by the way, it's a 3-hour movie. So when I say the last third, I'm not talking about 30 minutes.
Yeah, you're not getting.
I'm talking about
20 minutes.
I'm talking about over an hour
of just action.
Of not only amazing action, but
exhilarating, exhausting action.
Yeah. But even the climax of what we were talking about, like John Wick's death, and yes, I do think he is dead, because it is the perfect ending, which automatically makes it the best of the 4 movies. And that's why I said, as I process it, I am going to go to theaters again. I didn't have time to do it before the podcast, which is what I wanted to do because I'm moving. But I am going to go to the theaters again. I am going to see it again. But from what I've processed, I think this is... I just don't even see how you can make another John Wick movie with Keanu Reeves. I'm not talking about if you go outside of him.
Yeah.
You can't call it John Wick, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah. I don't think you can make another one and make it better. Even though I know they just did it on the 4th one, the way they ended it with his death, and like Kyle said, they literally full circled his entire arc. And so it would ruin, for me, and I think a lot of people would agree, the franchise if they were like, we're going to make a John Wick 5. Everybody would jump to conclusions like, that's a cash grab. Like, I'd rather you take all the characters that you build up in this 4th movie that are amazing characters.
Yeah.
Like, I already saw IGN write an article, and this is not coincidental. Like, this is stuff that they're definitely putting out feelers because these has to be in the works, like the planning process. But a Kane movie, absolutely.
They said that they're already working on a spin-off that's not the ballerina, and I feel like it has to be a Kane movie.
It has to be. Kane is the coolest character.
He implied that he had his eyes taken as part of a.
He gave them to get out,
gain freedom. Yeah,
just like John. I want to know, like his.
I want to know. I want to know his backstory. Why would you not want to know his backstory the entire time?
Well, and John Wick deciding after all of his bad choices that got all of his friends killed, mind you, throughout the last couple movies, like all of his friends paid the price, for his, choices and everything, that's this whole thing is about choices and consequences and everything like that. I keep on throwing that word theme around, stuff like that, it's like it coming full circle and him taking on the burden of somebody else's, like, problems for the first time, which is Kane at the end. He's like, I'm going to give my life so you can, like, live with your daughter and stuff like that. Let me unburden this from you, just like, because he got dragged back into that life after giving his eyesight away.
Yeah.
It just like to take away that death, like it just kind of unravels that entire sacrifice and everything like that. Because John Wick finally does. Because John Wick's kind of he's selfishly making a lot of really bad decisions this entire series, So for him to do this selfless act, like that's his redemption. That's his moment, Again, they keep on saying a good death deserves a good life. And this is him aiming to have that like last second good life, to do something good for somebody else so somebody else can keep living. That means a good death, And again, so if they do
a genuine good death, not like
so if a John Wick 5 happens and they're like, I'm back, it just kind of undoes it. But like, if you want to unravel this universe and then he comes back from like out of death retirement years from now, he'd be 70. I don't know,
Yeah. And you know what?
Cool,
I'd be okay. We can, have him team up with Bob Odenkirk and do like a nobody team up or whatever. Like, because it was by the same stunt crew or whatever. Clearly, you can tell by the fight scenes. So like, I'd be like, let's get all.
There was even a character in this called Nobody. So I was like, why didn't you just get Bob Odenkirk to play that role?
That's so true, actually.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I don't ever even talk about him, but he's another.
You could give him a whole movie. I thought he was really interesting. Yeah.
I feel like he was an up and like not the actor because I've seen him in stuff. Granted, he's kind of young, but that character though does seem like he's scrapping around for all of his resources. It didn't feel like he was going to tailors and getting his suits and all this. He was clearly a drifter and not.
He was a man of his own device.
It felt like he was new to the game in a way. And he was just really good at tracking.
Or maybe like beyond the game. Maybe he thought himself beyond. Like, I don't need all that stuff. Like, I got this on my own, Like, I don't know. Maybe it's a pride thing. I would love for them to explore what that character... why he didn't use the amenities.
I would give him I know we're getting a Continental show, but it sounds like it's just going to be a mini series, and they're like 3 movie-long episodes, basically 3 90-minute episodes. But I would take a TV show of that guy. I feel like they could flesh out him.
He's got a cool puppy, man.
Being like, what's going on here? Like, and figuring things out, instead of it being already known by all the characters in the movie.
Yeah.
It would be cool to have everything explained kind of like at ground level in that sense. Yeah. In Ballerina, I know Keanu. It's already been like announced that he's in that movie, but I think that movie occurs between 3 and 4, if I'm not mistaken. Does that sound? I don't.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, I know it takes place during all of this. Like, and they said none of the side quest movies, if you will, are going to disrupt the ending of this movie.
Yeah,
like it's not going to be like
Continental. It takes place in decades.
Yeah,
ago,
exactly. So maybe we see a young John Wick there. He's a young Jordana, whatever his name is, Jordani. Jordani Jorgosky, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't mind. Like, we've already talked about like the side characters. That would be cool. I think you can flesh out a lot of them.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't even mind.
Akira too. Yeah, give her her own movie. Yeah.
I wouldn't even mind like a continuation of what happens after the whole John Wick thing. Like, he stays dead, so you don't call it John Wick 5. But you would have to call it something else. But there's enough characters there still in play. The table's still active. Mm-hmm. Like, you could continue this franchise and you could bring in somebody completely new.
Mm-hmm.
Another assassin, absolutely. And you could continue the story with, I'm forgetting his name, but the guy who runs the Continental.
Yeah, I just know Ian McShane's the actor. I don't
Yeah.
remember the character name at all for some reason. Winston.
Winston.
God, that was going to drive me crazy if I couldn't remember that.
I was like, Walter? Yeah.
You could still continue the story of the Continental, like I'm talking after John Wick's death, and then maybe bring in new assassins into the Continental, and then kind of explore the table and kind of, in a way, reboot the franchise. Like that would be something you could do later on.
Soft reboot, yeah. You're just kind of like telling just a side story, you know. But all the rules are already implemented, and all the things are already there, you know.
So there's a lot they could do.
Well, you know, they thematically, this whole series, but this movie's specifically, you know, they lean so much into like Roman and Greek mythology and everything like that. You know, even Chiron's, you know, or Karen's character, you know, he plays like the boatman of the River Styx and everything like that. So when they kill that character, Lance Reddick's character, it's spelled Charon. I think it's Karen or Charon or something like that. Yeah, I'm sorry, Greek and Rome theologist out there, my bad. But like him being kind of like the passenger between the two worlds of like the underworld and the real world and everything like that. Him being the concierge has always been this like thematic position for him, you know, and kind of reflecting back on those like Greek and Roman mythologies. So when he dies in the movie, which is also very eerie, we can maybe get into that a little later because of obviously his real life death and everything like that. I was gonna
bring that up too.
You know, when he dies, like hell unleashes across the real world. You know what I mean? So it's like his death is actually felt in a really like a biblical and mythological way within the context of the universe.
Yeah, it was like catalyst.
So if they keep on leaning into that theme of just like Roman and Greek mythology, like those are easy templates to like really lean into and kind of create some really cool and thematic stories, like either on TV or in movies. Like you're not running out of content here, and you can just keep on hiring new folk, and hell, you can even get the raid guys, you know, back to like, you know,
they didn't get killed. They didn't
get killed, but you can get Eco too, man. You can get the main raid dude. You know?
He spared Common too, right? He left a knife in him, and he was like,
Common's still alive.
If you take it out, you bleed out. I'm not saying Common's a great actor or nothing, but I'm just saying there are people that he left alive.
Halle Berry's still alive, you know. Like you have all these. You
have a movie, man.
You have a lot of players on the table here and you have an easy grab bag of themes that you can be like, well, what's some more Greek and Roman mythology bullshit? A lot of cool stories there. Bring them in, you know. Mesh them in together in this cool gung fu, you know, kind of thing that we've been you know, kind of experiencing.
What we really need is a John Wick video game. That's what we really
Oh my gosh.
Is it one? Didn't we talk about one maybe being
There was like a John Wick Hex video
No,
game.
but I thought someone picked up something. I can look that up while we move on, but like it's
well, I wanted to circle back on Lance Reddick because the way that they shot and wrote all this stuff like they wrote it like 3 or 4 years ago, I imagine, but I know they shot it and finished it in 2021. So like it was just incredibly. You mentioned eerie. That's like a perfect word for it, but it's also very fitting as well. Like just his final words being like, "It has been my honor" and all that stuff, and then how Winston talked about him like after the fact. I was just like, damn, it was almost like kind of a weird. Like
I was like, they shot all this before he died. Poetry. Like, there's no way they did that. Like, because it felt so fitting to like, you know, because it, you know, just simple stuff where it's like, his tombstone just says friend because that's what he was. You know, I'm like, oh,
yeah, no.
I was
reminder of why he's doing what he's doing. He's like, I wanted to say loving husband, and I'm like, that's right. That is the whole reason that he kind of went on this kick. Yeah. And you don't really remember because all the
killing a gazillion people to be a loving husband.
I also like how he dyed his gray hairs out. Like he doesn't have gray hair in this movie. He's like last movie he had gray hair, but now that he's full Baba Yaga mode or whatever, he looks cleaner than ever. You know, because he's been reborn. It's part of the rebirth storyline or whatever.
He's got a little bit of gray in this one.
In that picture, yeah.
I think that's the third one.
I think that's the third one. He's really gray in the third one because like he's on the run and he's like in the middle of a transformation. So like I don't know. I'm pretty sure there's a thematic reason a in-universe reason for why like his hairs are like different color. Maybe, you know, just like imagery or whatever like that. So couldn't tell you.
Even before I went and saw the movie and we found out about again, forgetting his name, Reddick, his death. I was even like, oh, I really like his character. I wonder what they'll do. Like, will they replace him or something? So then I'm sitting in the theater and watching this, and I'm like, this is like one character. I'll be honest. I thought he could never die. Like, why would anybody kill him?
Right.
There's no reason to kill him. He's not good or bad. He's neutral. He doesn't do anything. He just brings people in, follows the rules. He's not the head of anything. And then he dies. I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. He like died in real life, and then they actually killed this guy off that I didn't think could die in this movie. Like one of the few characters you would say Winston should die before this guy dies, right? Mm-hmm. And so that to me blew me away, because I was like, wow, I did not see that. So like you just said, Jeff, like this was written and shot 2 or 3 years ago. And here we are, like he dies a week before this movie's released, and then like in the first 20 minutes he's dead.
Yeah. He didn't even get to go to he was doing press, yes, but they hadn't premiered the movie yet. So he wasn't able to go to the premiere and or all of like the red carpets where they showed the movie, because I know that because a lot of interviewers were asking, like Keanu and Ian McShane and all that. Yeah, they were all asking about Lance Reddick, and I was like, damn man, it just sucks that. I mean, it's not like anybody has a choice in when they go, for the most part. But you know, for him, it just sucks that he couldn't experience the movie with the people that he worked on it with. You know, before he had to go, I guess.
Dude was on a major like third act career, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
there was no way he was done. No way.
This guy was coming into like a really interesting place in his career. Not that he hasn't gotten work over the years, but like, you know, he got bigger than himself, you know, that he ever could have imagined, I think. And to go into video games and TV and movies and action sequences and drama and comedies
I just think he has one of the best voices. Like just his natural voice.
No, yeah, that's a Mount Rushmore voice for sure. You know,
like read me a bedtime story.
Yeah, him and there's that other guy who, gosh, who's that other guy that does Halo? I can't remember who it is now. It's gonna drive me crazy though.
You're talking about the Master Chief voice?
No, there's another voice like it's Keith David. It might be Keith David.
Oh,
yeah.
Community.
Yeah, like those iconic voices that you go, oh, it's that guy.
Yeah. In Mass Effect, I'm like, oh, it's Anderson. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, we've talked a lot about. I'm surprised at how much of stories and themes we've talked about this freaking movie. Where
we haven't even talked about.
We can get into like the action. Derek brought up like in the podcast before that, like, you know, the first like 2/3, I would say Osaka aside, were like very like, oh, this is some John Wick stuff, you know, like some John Wick things are happening here, you know,
on par with Parabellum,
yeah, you know, and then that third act kind of like really elevates it. But before maybe we get to the big stuff, like I want to talk about the Osaka, because I don't want Osaka to get lost. Actually,
I think Derek alluded to the very beginning of the movie too, where like it starts with him on horseback and he's struggling to take down 2 guys. And it's like, and then he goes and kills the new elder, and which is a great scene, and it's actually kind of funny. Really.
I'm telling you, he has 50 words in that entire movie.
It's actually 380, I think. Is it lines? Really? What did I say earlier, Jeff? I looked that up earlier. It's like 308 like words or whatever that he says in the whole entire movie. And I was just watching an interview with Lawrence Fishburne, and he was like, you know, Keanu came up to me the other day and he goes, Lawrence, I haven't talked in 15 weeks. I'm going crazy. Like, so it's funny that even like on set, like Keanu was like, I'm ready to have some talking lines, you know, because he spends like, if this movie's 2 hours and 45 minutes long, he spends 2 hours and 30 minutes of it fighting.
Yeah, because he's in on almost every scene. He's in almost every scene.
I can't remember where I read it, but it might have just been a random Twitter or Reddit comment, and you can believe anything on those. But I think I saw somebody say that it was like his call. He like had a hand in editing the movie because the first cut was like over 4 hours, and the director was like, "What do we do?" And Keanu was like, "Why am I talking so much? Cut my lines. Cut out my lines." And that was like, you know, that was the first sacrifice, I guess. But I'm
also
glad they
give me that 4 hour cut. Also,
I'll take that. I'll take.
I know. I do want to watch
that with Hateful Eight. He was like, "Here's 4 episodes, and it's like a 4 hour cut of Hateful Eight." and it's great. It's fantastic. But when you split it up like that, I mean, Justice League did that too. When you split it up like that, it makes it more like digestible and stuff like that.
I would say Irishman's like that too. I think people who watch Irishman over like 3 nights were like, I actually like that movie. Whereas some people who like powered through it, they're like, I don't know.
Powering through it was the first time I watched it. Powering through was a mistake, honestly. But watching it again, like in pieces, I was like, yeah, this is actually really good. Yeah,
it's a good movie. It's got some
good very good
stuff.
The opening action sequence, I was like, oh, that's a weird way to start your movie. Like, I really thought they were going to hit the ground running, but no, they were kind of like building up the momentum, even to the point, we could just jump to Osaka, even in the point when they do get to Osaka and they're having a standoff and the lights go out and it's just like neons and stuff. Yeah. It takes them a good several seconds before they actually start shooting at each other. Yeah, like they're just standing there because the movie is just building momentum to the first scene, the first true action sequence.
Yeah.
And then that action sequence lasts. It felt like forever.
It's got to be 20 or 25 minutes. It's got like, I'm talking like from that lobby fight scene all the way to him nunchucking his way out of the like, and there's stuff after that too. Like that scene just keeps going.
Yeah, and then Kane killing Sonata's character. Like that happens after he escapes. John Wick escapes. So like it just keeps going and going, and there's like new things and new like cool neon lights and.
I love how they just like, and it didn't feel goofy. They're like, we're gonna add some really traditional Japanese samurai stuff in this. I'm like, okay, because there's a lot of like Kurosawa style. Crazy. Well, not even that, but like the Kurosawa style. That is the nunchucks for sure. But the Kurosawa style like side, like it's one samurai over here, the other over here. They're gonna rush at each other, and it's very classic, like and it just happens to be on the backdrop of like sick neon lights and cool like. Backgrounds and stuff like that. Like
starting in the lobby was a really smart move, and then like dimming the lights and having to stare at each other.
Just like they were like, hey, we created this like beautiful backdrop for them to like fight each other in. Like
it's definitely a more beautiful, less like rundown hotel than the Continental.
Yeah, the Continental looks like an old New York hotel, and the Osaka hotel looks like the most state of the art, like badass Japanese, abode.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
And I love Kane in the kitchen eating noodles during.
While everyone's fighting.
Yeah, everybody's fighting. The guys are getting their ass kicked, and he's like, "All right." And then the doorbell sequence with the sensors.
He's got the sensors,
in the kitchen. That was just brilliant. It was so brilliant.
These are like just incredible things that someone's like, I don't know, man. I'm kicking around this idea where a blind guy he uses like sensors to get me in those meetings. Yeah, I need to be in these like think tank meetings because I have no idea how something like that is conceptualized or even thought of. Exactly. And like even his erratic like tapping, like sometimes he'll like legit not know where he is or what's going on, but he plays it so cool, and like he's like sporadically like using his cane to like find or something.
He shoots as well, you can tell he's just
the way he shoots, like one of these are probably gonna hit him, but he's like it's like 6 shots or whatever. By the way, when they're like shooting at each other and using their and they're holding like it's a samurai sword in one hand and like a Glock in the other, and they're like it's the coolest thing in the entire
so cool, dude. It would make me like disheartened if I were like a cop or somebody that has to use a gun regularly and I can't just go like this to cover up from bullets.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the amount of like
can I just go like this and block the bullets?
By the way, since the first movie all the way until this movie, John Wick has shot the correct amount of shots out of every magazine from every gun, and every gun's different, obviously, as we all know. Across the entirety of the entire series. So like, and he, on that last shot, you always on screen see him reload. And that was like a rule that Chad, the director, said that he always had to do, is like, no matter what, you will always see him reload. Because it's always been something that's bothered him. Like we always joke about it. We always joke about it where it's like, what does that guy have infinite ammo? He shot like 50 times. I haven't seen him reload. And like the idea is, you reload like during a cut or whatever.
That's actually my favorite, not to backtrack to Parabellum, but on the third one, when they finally realize, we need more firepower. And this is where Sharon gets to actually like showcase that he can, kick some ass. When they go out with shotguns and John Wick, like Sharon is like, pushing up his glasses, being a nerd about reloading, and John Wick's just like doing this, like he's doing like a quick reload every time. He's such a badass when he reloads. Even just reloading, he's.
I was gonna say is they make the reloading even like very entertaining.
Fluid.
But I have always been in movies like I was saying in the podcast, like the gaming podcast, like I like my movies to be grounded, even if I know they're unrealistic. I still like there to be some reality to them. especially stuff you can control. So I've always hated like the endless amount of bullets.
Someone's
and stuff
got a
like
6-shooter and he's on his 20th shot. Yeah.
So I really have always appreciated from the very first John Wick one that not only do they have state-of-the-art action, cool freaking scenes that I've never seen in other movies, but they're grounded in reality. They're like, hey, these are real guns, and they have real, like, certain amounts of bullets, and you're going to watch these guys, not just John Wick, but other enemies, all the bad guys, all of them, they're reloading too. So, and it's kind of cool how they kind of work it into the combat, because there's been several times in all 4 of the movies where both the bad guy and John Wick are like out of bullets, and it's like reloading real fast and poof, get a shot off.
It happened with him and Kane both ran out, and John realized Kane doesn't really 100% know where he is. So he's like trying to look around for like another gun or another weapon, and then he like steps on glass like a little bit.
Yeah.
Such a great moment.
God,
there's so much tension in every single, like, no shot is wasted.
You're talking about the scene where he's like,
either, so you're constantly like,
it's John, are you dead?
Yeah, John,
are you dead? It's just silence for like 30 seconds. Like, are you dead?
Yeah.
And then he starts. You can tell he starts to assume he's dead, and he's kind of like bummed a little bit, and then he moves just like that, and it goes, and he's like, oh crap, it's on.
Yeah.
By the way, the scene, actually, the very beginning when John Wick starts to get involved in that action sequence, when he and Akira are on the roof together, and she's bow and arrowing people while he's shooting them in the head and stuff like that. That's some of my favorite takedowns were from the movie, or in that scene where like she gets somebody stuck, like their arm is stuck right here, and then John comes in and like shoots him in the head, so they're like hanging.
I
really
like
funny.
He always has to shoot them like underneath the helmet, which I love. So it's always some way to get like into the helmet, which I think is so funny. But yeah, the dead limping, that's good stuff. Yeah.
And there's that one scene where like he's got the sword in the neck, or a knife, one of them. I think it's a sword in the neck, and then he's just shooting the neck.
Yeah.
It's so excessive. It's
too good.
You can't help but laugh.
I think he got him. I think he got him.
He's dead, buddy. I really like that. I really like that scene a lot, and they really do a good job of like Kane. Like, he didn't want to kill all. You know what I mean? Like, it's like they did a good job of being like, oh, I'm being forced to do all this stuff or whatever. And he has a lot of remorse and everything like that. You know, he, like you said, he kind of feels bummed whenever he thinks he killed John and stuff like that. Like, there's just a lot of, he plays that character so well, where like, because they're mirrors of each other, you know. I think they even have a moment where it's like, did you take my name, you know? And they're like, yeah, they gave it to me, you know. And it's just like, these 2 characters are mirrors of each other, and to see them as not the bad guy, especially because he comes through and kind of helps him at the end, at least get to the duel and everything like that. It's such a cool, complicated character they created. And I think that's another cool thing about this whole series, is like, we showed up for the guns and the action and the judo and all that stuff. I had no idea 4 movies in I was going to be so like into the rules and the world building and the characters and everything like that. Like, you know, that's and again, that, you know, that's the stuff that's going to be used to spin off on. So like, you know, we came for the action, but we're staying for the cool shit.
Well,
you know,
and for the 4th movie of all movies in a franchise, normally the 4th one is where you're like, I don't know if you should be introducing new characters at this point. And
we're wrapping stuff up.
Like, come on, man. We're, let's start wrapping things up. But they introduced the most new characters in this movie.
We almost didn't see a lot of old characters.
Cool. Like,
I mean, Halle Berry doesn't show back up, you know?
Yeah.
Almost said Luis Guzman. What's the other
John Leguizamo.
John Leguizamo, excuse me. I'm such an asshole. John Leguizamo didn't show back up. Like, we didn't get a who's who. You know, Jimmy the cop didn't show back up. You know,
Working tonight, John.
Working tonight, John. God. We didn't get a who's who of like people we've met before. It's all the people that like, you know, that John has known throughout his life, and they're introducing these people last second. But like, by the time Sonata's dying, I'm like, aw. And by the time Akira is like, if you don't kill him, I will. I'm like, yeah. You know, I'm already invested in all these characters.
And when Scott Adkins in a fat suit dies, you're like, yeah, eat it, because he was so smarmy and such a asshole at the poker table, that like the way he died, like how he fell like 3 times on his head, like and his weight just crushed his head.
Like voice too, like. Space's dead
when he dies.
It's too good, yeah.
That was good. That felt like OG, like John Wick 1 action sequence.
Well, he feels like a early act or mid act boss, like fighting a video game.
Yeah,
whereas
exactly.
like just a comically a bad Russian guy, which like Scott Adkins is so used to playing Russians or German bad guys, like he's been doing it all throughout Undisputed, so he felt very at home in that accent and hamming it up pretty good, which I thought was super funny. But him being in that fat suit, like, and sorry if this is insensitive or whatever, but like all I wanted was just to see him in that fat suit doing a round kick, because that's funny imagery. That's funny to me. And he does so many great high kicks, and like and I was like, I got everything I wanted out of that scene.
Yeah, he's so comically agile in the movie. It's
so
great.
And it's like video. It's video game, which again we'll get to more reasons why this whole movie is very video gamey, later. But like this was another big moment where it just felt like a video game. And even that like club, like where does this club exist? Like there's this giant like it makes no, and I don't care, like if that's not a criticism, if this is a place that would not exist in real life. Maybe it does. I don't go to Europe and rave, I don't know, maybe that place is real. But like to me,
they don't have much else to do over there.
It's such a fictitious, weird, like a scenario, but all the lights cascading through like all these waterfalls, and the use of waterfalls and splitting up the fight between two people standing in between the waterfall. Like there was so much cool imagery going on in this fight scene. Well, a lot of it was just like practical judo and stuff like that, and just kind of people shooting at each other and dodging and stuff. Like it was all the stuff going on in the background, how like everything was presented to you that like made that scene stand out to me in a big way.
They played with the lighting exceptionally well. I mean, throughout the entire movie, but
throughout the whole movie, it's never been an issue. But like they were like, hey, this is gonna be our like artsy scene.
I feel like they were definitely being more purposefully artistic with the cinematography in this movie for sure, where to the point where I'm like, if they got nominated, they won't get nominated for anything at the Oscars, but if they did get nominated for like cinematography and production design, I would be like, yeah,
I think it deserves it. I think there are a lot of scenes where I was like, oh, this is pretty, And like again, we're talking about a movie where look at Derek's, image. There's a bunch of people shooting people in the heads, a bunch of guns at people's heads,
Exactly.
And like I shouldn't be saying like, oh, the imagery in this is so beautiful, and the way that they captured this scene is so like that's stupid. Like
when they're at the table just deciding how the duel is going to be, I'm like, look at the imagery in this, like
design. There's a lot of scenes.
There's some really good lighting and there's
some
that are it's really dark, so I was like in the beginning I was struggling like what's going on? What's going on here? But
I know what you're talking about.
But overall I felt like the moments that they wanted to be dark, they made sense, and then the moments where it was like literally the scene I have in my head is towards the end of the movie, the duel and all that stuff with the sun rising, how awesome that looked.
So beautiful, and also again thematic for his death and everything like that, like it's dawn of a new era and all that yada yada. It's very simple imagery, but it's beautiful because it's Paris, and it's just again, just the way that they capture it, and it's a beautiful.
No wonder they were able to do so much murdering in Paris, because literally everybody, the entire population, is an assassin. So that's perfect how that works out.
I love the Warriors like callback too, because like they not only they play the Nowhere to Run
Warriors,
to Baby, which is they play that song in the Warriors too, but like the girl talking and it's just right on her mouth and the mic. That is from the Warriors. And even Chad said in the interviews, he goes, I wanted to do a movie that was an homage to the Warriors, and this is kind of my movie. But he's a big Warriors fan, apparently. So
I mean, that movie freaking rules. I get it.
That movie freaking rules. And all those homages worked for me, too, because they were goofy, but like it was very fitting to everything because...
it was also a nice break in between, because that entire sequence involving music and upping the betting, or not bet, but like whatever you call it, the hit amount and stuff like that. Like it's like a nice break in between watching people.
You needed the break because this is the moment where you're like the movie becomes so unrelenting. Like that car chase sequence, like in the circle. I forget that thing's called. I used to remember what it's called. The Arch de Triomphe, right? Like I think it's the Arch. Yeah, I think it's the Arch de Triomphe.
I've just been calling it the roundabout sequence because I have no idea.
Yeah, the roundabout sequence with the big arch in the middle of it. That's the scene that like. Before I saw, everyone was like, this is the scene that everyone's going to be talking about. And I was like, there's no way. The second he even got in the car, even go, Kyle, this is not going to live up to what you have in your head or whatever. Not only did it live up to that and exceed it in every way, shape, or form. I remember when that scene ended, I looked at my roommate who I saw the movie with, who was dead asleep during this scene, and was literally heartbroken that I was like the only one. I was the only one who just witnessed that. You know, like it was
at the same time.
It was such a big moment because like I'd never in my life. I mean, people were getting hit by cars and like spinning up in the air, real like stunts, and like John Wick shooting them midair. You know, like it's so out of control. And even the sequences where he's in the car, no doors and everything like that, and he's like spinning around doing.
And the camera's making a point to show you he's driving that car, doing
That's him, baby.
You know? Yeah.
It's and the whole and this sequence, it's got to be 10, 12, 15 minutes, like just nonstop, you know, like, and it just keeps going and going, and then more goons show up and they're fighting in the middle of traffic and people are being thrown and judo thrown into traffic and stuff like that, and everyone keeps going and they're using like brakes, like we're like, oh, the bus is going by, now both people are going to reload real quick, talking about like the big reloading sequences.
Remember when he revved up a motorcycle and just had it run into a guy?
That was awesome.
That was so amazing.
I just and the second I go,
let it go and it just goes and he just crushes the guy against the van.
The second I go, they did it. They've exceeded my expectations. The scene kept going and it just kept, I was like, I cannot, stop it. I cannot right now. You know, like now when I go see an action,
and there wasn't even a breath after that. They went right to the house and
which is like scene. Might be a better scene. I don't know. It might be a better.
It was definitely my favorite scene. I'm not saying that too. The roundabout's cool,
the fire
but
scene,
but just
it might be. Two people are saying yes. I'm saying maybe. It's a three-way yes. You know what I mean? Like after seeing what I thought was the greatest thing ever, a more greater thing happens. You know, like it's out of control.
Because I don't, and you guys watch more movies than I do. I don't think I've ever seen a scene shot that way.
No,
hasn't happened.
You know, it's
an action scene, especially shot that way, and still be very, very interesting and like cool to watch. Like, what the heck are you doing?
John and Keanu had never heard of Hotline Miami. You know what that scene is based off of? Chinatown Massacre. The total ripoff of Hotline Miami that no one played. I've played it. It's a pretty good game, but it's a total. And they're like, IGN literally goes, you had to have gotten that from Hotline Miami. Like, no, we've never heard of that.
Identical. The vibes are
Dude, I actually thought there was actually a song from Hotline Miami in the staircase sequence. I was like, oh my god, I think this is a Hotline. And like, anyways, they'd never heard of that game. They had gotten that from a game called Chinatown Massacre, I believe it's called. It's a really fun game. It's like Hotline Miami, but like realistic graphics and way more particle effects. It's always on sale for like $2 or $3. Definitely pick it up.
I'll have to check it out.
Like the two, I don't know how long exactly that they did that consecutive take. That I'm sure there's trickery involved, and it's not just a camera on a crane.
Eric Voss from New Rockstar said it is a legit oneer. At least, and like he could be wrong. You know, again, like he's working off the same theater experience that we all are.
A consistent oneer, like it was a oneer, and then it would focus on 100 for a bit.
It cut. Obviously, it would cut away. So I think he said it was a 2-minute oneer. You know, so there was at least 2 minutes of it.
It's unbelievable though, like the amount of moving parts that have to actually be in place for not just
and again all the particles.
Not just John / Keanu, but like all of the enemies that come out of random corners. They have to come out at the right time, and like
exactly.
And just the visual aspect of like the fire and how it comes out, how it covers the people, how it affects everything around,
once
how it catches the environment on fire. Like it feels so visceral and real. I'm like, was he really shooting incendiary like shots at people, like blanks, like incendiary blanks?
Legit for a sec, like he was just lighting stuntmen on fire that were like, yeah, do it, I don't care.
Yeah, shoot me, I don't give a shit. Yeah, that's what I'm here for, baby. You know,
exactly. I'm already in flame retardant stuff. I don't care.
But like, there's so much like consistency because like he'll go under a door, but like you never cut from the action, so like he may go out of focus for a second because he's going through a door frame, but like there was just something about that whole sequence. I was just like, I don't know who thought of this, but again, it was just one of those things where
especially who thought of the whole shotgun incendiary shotgun
which is
weapon.
A real thing, but like
I know it's real, but like I just never thought like the scene didn't even need that extra pick me up, but it just like made that scene.
I think it took it to the next level. I think without it still would have been cool, but the effects, the particle effects, and everything flying off and all that,
and
that's
he was
the part where I was like, "This is legit." Like, this
definitely,
is ridiculous.
And he was being very deliberate, at least the character, of when to use it, because he was still using a pistol every now and then. But when he started, you could tell when he was like, "This gunfight isn't going my way," he would just use it. He'd just be like, "Screw this, you're out of here." Like, I can't pistol you. It's not working out. So he would like, but these are like split-second decisions that he's making that like just come off like super organic and almost like a dance. Like it's pretty much ballet. This whole movie.
It is. It's a ballet with bullets,
Yeah,
and watching again, like you were saying, like sending out the stunt worker or stunt, person at the right time, the goon to get shot, for it to all have to go right, and then like maybe it goes wrong, and you're like, okay, we have to reset all the explosives for all the little shrapnel and everything like that, like reset everybody.
You thought resetting the lobby in the Matrix was a lot.
I mean, yeah. I didn't check how long this scene took, but I know the stairwell scene, which is like an elaborate scene, but not as like visually elaborate as this one. That took 5 days to shoot. So something like this, I can't even imagine. Maybe it took weeks to shoot this scene. Like I couldn't even tell you. I can't wait for more information to come out.
So I need to do some investigating on that myself, because I remember seeing articles about the staircase scene, but not a whole lot yet about the actual like the roundabout chase and the God's eye view in the house as well.
Yeah,
it's interesting. Yeah, the staircase scene followed right after that, right?
So I've been to that staircase, man. I've walked up those steps that go to that cathedral.
Really?
This is in my 20s.
You've
so
fallen
fit.
down them?
No, I didn't fall down all 222 steps of it, which is how many steps there are.
So
but like I was winded in my 20s after. So like to watch him like run, like, and by the way, when he falls, that's him, right, Jeff? Do you figure that out? Was that him that fall? That's a 45-second nonstop falling sequence stunt. That's an uncut, unadulterated stunt that Keanu Reeves is doing, falling down real stairs for 45 uncut seconds. You know how long that is to tumble downstairs? Like, just think about how long 45 seconds is, and for you to just be like, I'm uncontrollably rolling. Ow. Oh, no. Oh, shit. Here we go. Here's some more stairs. Here we go.
It's
like
a scene in Hot Rod, but practical.
It's a scene.
You can actually imagine somebody doing it. Like,
it's insane to me. And the way that it's shot, where he gets all the way up to the top of the stairs, and that goon who just shows up and fucks everything up all the time, kicks them down all the stairs.
Unnamed henchman, muscly
unnamed
French
high table French henchman. They kick him down. It was so funny to me. Like I thought that was so hilarious. So I was just, because it was so tiring watching him just even climb those stairs again. Because like I've been there. Like I know how tiring it is not being shot at and not having to fight people with kung fu weapons.
I remember thinking, because of how long, because you got to remember, there's like, we're talking about the third act, but there's like 3 big sections of the third act. Well, really, probably 4.
Yeah, the duel is not.
Yeah, with the duel being the 4th.
But yeah, it's very dramatic.
Yes, but it's like broken up that way. So when they got to the steps, first of all, just getting up to the top of the steps and all the action that happened was exhausting. Like even as somebody watching, I was like, okay, is it done yet? Is it done?
And then when he got knocked down again.
Then he got knocked down. I'm like,
oh my god!
It seems hopeless. Like I'm going through this, and it's goofy, but I'm like, hey, it's hopeless. By the way, the funniest part in the whole entire movie to me was they're like, well, I guess John Wick's not gonna make it, and they're all sitting at the duel waiting for them, and you just hear screams and bullet shots going off in the background, and they're all kind of looking at each other like, yeah. Like it's so funny how nonchalant they're being while they're just like, oh,
well, the Harbinger, Clancy Brown's character is like literally just there to oversee. That's his job, period.
Clancy Brown,
yeah, and so he's just kind of looking around like, what the hell did this?
Yeah. And Ian McShane, I just love how he's just like, yeah, that's what he does. Yeah, he kills people.
Yeah, it's true.
Very
they
funny.
say a lot with their face in that moment. That's enjoyable. And I love when Kane shows up, and there's already an implied brotherhood there because of their past and stuff like that, and their trajectories and stuff. So obviously he like helps them, and that's a great moment when they're taking down that big muscly guy or whatever his name was. He's the only character that doesn't really have any depth, but I think every John Wick movie has that muscly guy, unnamed muscly guy who is always in the way. You always have to have that in a John Wick movie.
Jaws and Bond didn't have a lot of depth, and he's considered one of the greatest henchmen of all time. So whatever.
Exactly. Good.
I think one thing we haven't talked about that I thought they did pretty good in this movie as well is I think the villain, the main protagonist or antagonist, was actually
the Frenchman.
I thought he was
him.
Really well done.
Yeah, I liked him.
Yeah.
I like the actor though too. So
he's great. Yeah, I've liked him in almost everything.
He made really interesting choices because the last one, the adjudicator in the third one, that person was like very serious and dry and very stone-faced and had a very like particular like dramatic walk and stuff. Mm-hmm. Whereas Marquise kind of felt, I don't know, he just kind of was doing this a lot and like, yes, that's how we do this. Yes, and he kind of had a hunch when he walked. he was kind of just more pompous and not physically imposing on any level.
He was very arrogant.
Yeah, very arrogant. Yeah. I like all his wardrobe choices.
Stuff, yeah.
He's always in some like super elaborate and very dumb suit. Yeah, like I'm like, you look. He
reminds me of a little bit more mature version of the first villain, that the son, but not the mafia.
Oh,
dude.
sure, the arrogance. Yeah.
Like he had that
kind
arrogance
of full theme there. Yeah.
But he was more mature because he was aware of who Wick was, and he did take him serious, and that's why he was, he was a wuss. He wasn't going to be able to fight Wick on his own, and he knew that. So he took him serious as far as getting as many people and the best of the best to go after him.
He was really smart
but his whole but his whole attitude was very much reminded me of the son from the first one, where he
especially when he meets his demise, and like Winston's like, you arrogant asshole.
You arrogant asshole.
He didn't even fire a shot. Like, it was just so good.
Yeah.
Everybody claps when that happened.
Same. The
it was
few
just
people
such an
in there really like that.
To get there, like it was great to have John get one.
It was so cool because being so exhausted from those previous 3 huge action sequences, when everything slows down for that duel, it's still very intense.
Yeah,
and, it's still a moment, but like it's the right amount of energy that you need to kind of calm down from the last few sequences, but it's still kind of unrelenting in its own way, and I kind of like that pacing switch up without it kind of feeling like a rug pull where you're like, don't feel that way anymore. It kind of eases you into the ending in a way that, like, I don't know how you were supposed to come down from those huge 3 action sequences with the overhead shot, the cars, and the stair sequence. These are high highs, guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like trying to figure out a way to like, what do we do after that? Like, how do you? It's not, you can't top that. You have to figure out a way to like come down from that. And I think so. Like, they doing the slow duel was like a real.
Exactly. They did it. They slowed it down with a duel, but the drama was still there. Like,
the drama was still there to kind of keep.
That was what I was gonna say. Like, for me, it's like, okay, so all the previous movies, basically, who Wick's hunting, and then he's gonna eventually get to them, right? In this movie, he cannot get to him because he has to do a duel, and he's not even dueling him; he's dueling a friend. So as they were doing that, I was like, the whole time I was like, I don't know how are they going to end this? Like, I was trying to figure out how are they going to play this out.
Well, because they kept on really honing in on like, well, Donnie Yen's got this really cute daughter who like plays flute and stuff, and I'm like, well, we can't kill him, right?
Yeah, I can't kill him.
And also as a viewer,
the girl dies, like, and and the movie really nails home that's like he can't die,
Yeah,
so like
as a viewer, you don't want him to die. So
as a viewer, don't want him to die.
Watching it,
especially after he tells the Marquise to fuck off so abruptly.
Yeah, I love that.
Like, he can't die now. He can't.
Yeah,
that was a great
I love
moment.
that. Yeah.
That was what I was trying to say, is like, I don't personally, now I'm okay with Wick dying, but when I'm watching, I'm just talking about when I'm watching it, I don't want Wick to die.
Yeah. So you as a viewer, your back's up against the wall because of what the movie imposes on you, and you're like, oh my God, does he have to die for everyone to get out of this happy?
Yeah, and I don't want Kane to die.
Yeah.
I want Marquise to die, but Marquise isn't in a position to die. So I'm like, how do they play this out? So the fact that the way they did it was a way that, I'm not saying I'm the smartest guy in the world, but I usually can kind of figure out where you're going. I'm not even going to pretend like I knew exactly how they were going to play this out.
Well, they did a really good job leading up, being like, we could always do more John Wicks, and I'm like, okay, yeah. And then you see this and you're like, you can't do more of these. So
especially because if they did another one, they would have to do pretty much the entire last hour as a full movie, and remember, it's just, guys, you can't up the ante that way. You have to use different characters now.
In 2019, they go, John Wick 4 and 5 are both greenlit, and we're shooting both back to back. They said that. You could go back and pull these headlines. These are very real headlines and very real news that happened.
That's why I didn't think he died, is because
exactly.
I was like, wait, they already said they were doing another movie. At some point,
Chad said, I only, worrying about making 2 good movies is way more stressful than making 1 great movie. And he scrap the whole thing, and he's like, I'm just gonna make this one last movie or whatever. So, but like we as viewers didn't know that, you know what I mean? So like even going in, I'm like, well, you know, I thought there was a fifth one. Someone said that at some point.
It's actually a genius. Now that you're saying that, it's actually a genius idea for like future franchises. Like, of course, you've got to establish yourself as a franchise, but come out with like false press. I'm not saying this is false press, but come out with false press like saying, we've already greenlit another trilogy, or we've already greenlit another 2 movies with this so-and-so star. And then when you're ready, you kill the protagonist or whatever, and you leave people going, wait, I thought there was another movie greenlit or another 2 movies greenlit. Because that's why I thought Wick was alive, is because I'm like, no. They already said that they were going to continue to make these movies as long as people wanted to see them.
Yeah,
we all still want to see them.
Exactly.
You can't kill John Wick. That doesn't make sense.
I'll make these movies until y'all are tired of them, I think is exactly what he said. Yeah.
So it didn't make sense to me, but also
it's the Ned Stark effect, you know. Game of Thrones comes out and we're like, wow, we know there's like going to be 17 seasons of this because there's 400 books or whatever, and then they kill him in the first season. You're like, well, hey, wait a minute, I thought he was the main character, and I thought there was more story. Like, but that feels good. Like we like that, right? Like that's the stuff that feels good, you know. Like having that moment where you're like, oh, I thought I had a finger on what was going on here, but I guess I didn't.
Enterprise worldwide.
Enterprise
hose.
Boats and hose, man. Yeah.
Unrelated. I wanted to give a shout out to we mentioned Akira already, her sword and bow and arrow capabilities. That actress had never been in a movie before. I think she had been in a TV show as a bit.
She's a singer, right?
Yeah, she's like a famous. She's like a
pop artist.
Yeah, she's a huge pop star in the UK. I think that's where she's the most. She's definitely got some success here, but I think over there she's more like. I would compare. I listened to her recent album from last year, and I would compare it to like Lady Gaga, but she has like a higher register. Like it's not so deep and stuff. Like I can't sing what she sings. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. Right. It's outside my range. Great voice. Crazy good actress. Like I had no clue she
was great. Yeah.
I thought she was good.
A ton of emotion to show in this movie.
Well, and she did her stunt work really well too. Like there was a lot of acrobatic stuff.
I feel like that
and I'm sure she had a stunt actress like that. But there's plenty of scenes that I knew that it was her in it, where I'm like, is she pulling that stuff off? You know,
pretty badass. Yeah,
pretty good. You know.
And the post-credit scene was a cool little tease too. And you know they could do a K movie and pick.
I want to see that resolve itself in its own movie. I would love that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think seeing those two.
I feel like that's why they cut it before anything happened.
Yeah, I think another part of the original ending was that you do see her kill him in the ending, and like people were like, I don't like that, and so I think that there's another one that they reshot. So it's like now that might be a movie. You know, we might get we might get a whole movie out of that. And like if she maybe kills her daughter, and now they both don't have anything to live for, so you have these two. Characters that are just hunting each other and have lost everything. Like that's a good story. Like we need to lean into that, you know. But even just a revenge story would work out just fine too. You know, I think there's enough there.
I want to compliment as I imagine we're winding down here.
Yeah.
I think the biggest compliment I want to give to these 4 movies, so not just the 4th one, is again, and I said this on our previous podcast, but I'm going to elaborate a little bit more. The fact that this whole franchise started with one movie about a dead wife, but really to simplify, it's a dead dog. And then it becomes a simple revenge story. Completely, you could tell, I believe, I could be wrong, and you guys probably know the backstory more. I believe this first movie was just made to be one movie. I don't think they were
1,000%.
I don't think they were like, this is. I don't think they went into this going, this is a franchise. I think they were just like, we're just gonna make this one really kick-ass action movie.
It was just a reason for Keanu and his favorite Matrix stunt actors to get together and like make a cool movie. And
that's what I think it was.
They did that and became the biggest thing overnight. You know.
And when they nailed it, then they were like, okay, we got to make another one.
The cool thing is they put in enough world building in the first one where you're like, there's some intriguing World of Assassin shit going on here.
Yeah,
and the
like
second movie, they're like, oh, did you like that stuff?
The second movie is where you're like, oh crap, there's so many rules. There's so many other characters. There's so much to this. And I'm like, I didn't even know this existed in the first movie. So that's the compliment I'm giving is it started out what I would say so small, and then not only did it the biggest mistake I see in a lot of like entertainment, video games, movies and stuff is as seasons go on, as movies go on or sequels go on, they try to make everything bigger, but they lose themselves. This this thing started smaller, and it does technically get bigger, but
crescendos,
but the depth of it is actually more interesting. That you actually do want it to get bigger.
It's not just louder. It's not louder. You know, it's there's substance. You know, there's extra substance there. Yeah.
And it stays personable, and I think that's the big thing with the fourth one that it did a really good job. Is like, so yeah, you have your good action, and that's my number one compliment. This franchise is probably the best franchise when it comes to pure action. And then my second compliment, and that I was trying to get at with this, is that the depth of the story, the world, the characters is actually really, really, really good. And the fourth one nails it. And that's why I have decided it's the best one, because it nails the most characters. It nails the ending of John Wick's story, and it leaves things open to going, if we decide, and they will, to make more, here is a plethora of interesting characters and a world that I still think is intriguing, because we still don't know that much about
we still haven't even like see anybody from the high table, except for like the guy who graduated the high table in the second movie. Like we've never even seen anybody who sits at the table.
Oh, you mean the guy that had his sister assassinated so he could take her spot in the high table?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, the Italian guy.
Yeah. The high table is basically Umbrella. Like when you think about it for Resident Evil,
it's the Lule, you know.
Yeah, who is Umbrella? Yet they exist in every Resident Evil game. So I don't think Resident Evil is even close to being as good as John Wick as far as world building and all characters and all that stuff. But the point is they've created this very interesting, mysterious, in a way, like corporation or something that they can continue to just throw out like new.
I love a faceless enemy, you know. Like they've built them up enough where you're like, okay, we all live under the table and we live by their rules. That is obvious, which is also another reason why John Wick has to die. He broke one of the two rules, you know. He broke both rules. So it's like, you know, again, like no one escapes consequences, which is why they out of body say that word 1,000 times across the last two movies. But I like how they added context to it. I like how they added context to it in the fourth movie. Like him and Halle Berry just weirdly say it to each other a few times in the third movie. But this movie, it's part of the rules, like that. No matter what, there's consequences at the end of that, you know. And again, that's what separates us from the animals. And they say that line a bunch too, you know.
I would say they didn't really touch on. They didn't say this part aloud as much, but I would say the entire 4 movies is about how far one person is willing to go for their own principles. Like, because it's more about the principle of killing the dog. It's more about what it represents.
Well, and it's more about the principle of knowing, like, I don't have to live underneath this like boot anymore and stuff like that. Yeah. Like he's actively choosing to break the rules and everything because of his own moral compass.
Exactly, his own individual principles, like instilling and stuff like that. Yeah. But they don't really say that part aloud as much. They just that's that part. But the consequences of following those principles to your deathbed is, you know, the part they say aloud.
Well, and it's and this is not a dudesy reference, Jeff, but it's part of like it's part of a free will kind of conversation too, where it's like, you know, like John Wick is the only John Wick is the only person with like actual free will in this, because everyone's living like for the high table, you know. Yeah. And Chad in an interview was talking about, he's like, we wanted to explore those themes of free will and, you know, and just living as a passenger in somebody else's world. In these movies, you know, and John is constantly every movie breaking bigger and bigger and bigger rules until a point where too many rules are broken where everybody around him pays for it. You know what I mean? They can't get their hands on him, so everyone else is going to suffer for it. And that's by destroying consecrated grounds like the Continentals. That's by killing friends. It's by killing contacts. By killing, you know, like family members of his weird, you know, Russian or German family. He's Russian. I keep on saying German.
He's Russian, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Russian family. And
German was the fat dude. Yeah.
They were in Germany.
He went to Berlin to find his Russian family in Berlin.
Tonks from Harry Potter, which
Yes.
I don't really know what that means, but I know that's what she's in.
That's her name in Harry Potter.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. I know she's in it, but she is John Wick's, I guess, like stepsister. In the context of like the family and everything like that. Like in Germany, but they're Russian, right? Yeah. She's not German.
Yeah, they're Russian. Yeah. They're I'm not gonna say the G word because it's a slur apparently.
German? Have I been saying a slur word?
I'm trying to avoid saying the word gypsy. How dare you?
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, we can't say gypsy anymore.
How dare you, man? I think they're from Belarus or something. Anyway,
wait, can we say gypsy if they're gypsies? We just can't say gypped. I think that's the rule.
Oh, really?
I don't know. Maybe
is that where gypped came from?
Yeah, gypped me. Yeah,
I generally didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, you gyp me off means like a gypsy rip, like you rip me off like a gypsy.
I didn't know that's what that meant. I didn't know that was on par with like, don't be
It's funny how like we say a lot of stuff and we don't actually know the root of
I'll say stuff all the time,
from.
and one of my woke, like employees will be like, that actually means this. I'm like, oh, excuse me, I didn't know. I didn't know. Don't call HR on me.
That's pretty harsh. I didn't know that. That's crazy. Anyway, so I do end every episode of Current Cinema just looking at the box office for the weekend, just because it's a good capture of what's everybody doing at the theater. So naturally, number one is John Wick Chapter 4. I think they made this is like the most.
It's breaking its series records. I don't know how it's doing. It's the highest first night, highest first weekend of the series.
Yeah, 73 million. Awesome. So then number 2 is Shazam! Fury of the Gods, which I still came away liking. I think
I like that.
I like them. Yeah. Number 3 is Scream 6. Number 4 is Creed 3. Number 5 is 65. It's nothing but numbers in all these movies.
That's funny. Yeah.
I'm surprised people are still seeing 65, if I'm honest.
I'm surprised anybody went out and saw that movie, to be honest. I know. Yeah. Talk about Adam Driver just selling seats, like.
Literally, it's has nothing else to go on.
Do you know about this?
Like,
do you know about this movie, Derek?
When I first saw the previews, I was like, "This is interesting." And then I watched, forgetting his name, I always watch his reviews.
Jeremy Johns,
and he was like, "This is absolute garbage."
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know a single person who's watching it, but like, it's kind of okay. Like everyone's like, "This is awful." Like everyone has the same unanimous experience with this. Yeah.
I actually heard. I was watching a podcast or something. Oh no, it was Dudesy. It was the Dudesy podcast. They were forced to. They I say forced, but they still have free will, dude. But that podcast is quote unquote run by an AI, like meaning that sometimes they'll be talking and an AI will chime in and tell them what to do, what segment to do next, and he'll assign them, hey, you're gonna go do this next week. So he assigned them to go see 65 starring Adam Driver.
Oh, okay.
And so they came back to talk about it this week, and they just spoiled the whole thing. They just spoiled the whole.
They did.
And I was like, oh, this sounds terrible.
Yeah, it does sound really bad. Yeah. It's a pass for me. Yeah, sorry, Adam Driver. Sorry, Kylo Ren. I got to pass.
I am in the middle of watching Champions, that Woody Harrelson R-word movie.
I'm sorry,
is that the basketball one?
Yes, yeah.
I don't know about this at all, but I feel
that's so terrible.
So.
It's like a Peter Fair. It's one of the Farrelly brothers directed it.
I used to love the Farrelly.
Is it funny then?
Yeah, it's supposed to be a comedy.
So far,
it's supposed to be a comedy, right?
Yeah. It's like it's comedy with some heart, but it's like a sports comedy, so it's like a bunch of stuff you've seen.
Did one of the Farrelly brothers go, "I'm not doing that with you"? Like that?
Well, I think the reason that it's one Farrelly brothers is because he's the one that won the Oscar. Like he won the Green Book, whatever. Best Picture,
that's right. Oscar. Green Book, that laugh riot. Yeah.
That movie actually is pretty funny, but it's just.
Is it really? I haven't seen it.
It's okay though.
I just know it's not like it's not about funny.
It's not the best picture, that's for sure.
Well, it's not about funny subject matter either. So it's funny that it's funny. Yeah.
But I think that's why that one Farrelly brother is just focusing on his own track because he won the Oscar. So
is this movie in the theaters or is it streaming?
No, I totally legally don't. Man, I am putting myself on blast a lot in this episode. Gypsy and the R word. And
we're canceling Jeff. I'll tell you that. I had to be the woke person.
I am the most cancelable
Jeff, you can't say
person.
Jip, buddy. You know, let's say that.
Yeah, Oof. I apologize to everybody out there that might have been offended, and I actually mean that genuinely.
I was just asking because I was like, you said you're in the middle of it. I'm like, wait, isn't that only in the theaters? What did you just like get up in the middle of theaters like pause?
I watched it.
You pause, yeah.
I have it. I have it. Don't worry about it.
Okay,
That's all. That's as far as I'm
He
willing to
got
go.
a Hollywood screener because he's a big time boy.
But also a good part of the movie is that Caitlin Olsen is in it, and she's in most of the movie, and I think she's amazing in everything. She makes me laugh in any role that she's in. So,
is she one of the Olsen twins?
No, Caitlin Olsen is Sweet D from It's Always Sunny.
Oh,
yeah.
So no.
So no, not one of the Olsen twins.
I don't know,
The
man.
Olsen sisters and their older.
Yeah, and the oldest sister,
Caitlin-
D. Reynolds.
Caitlin
All right, wrap this up. I'm sorry.
All right. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Subscribe to us on YouTube and all that stuff.
I hope all of y'all were appropriately wicked off. All right. I hope everyone got wicked off.
This was
properly.
a wicked podcast.
Thank you.
It was a wicked
Thank you.
show.
Thank you for being here this week. We never have guests. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in to Current Cinema Chapter 8 and watch us on Current Gen as well. We're going to be on that this week, I assume. All of us. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
We gotta talk Resident Evil 4. I beat it.
And we got to talk. Derek and I got to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. There was actually a moment in that movie that we referenced in this podcast, and I forgot about it. There was a moment. Oh crap! Oh, it was when they were doing like a standoff, and something blew across the screen that was supposed to resemble a tumbleweed, and everybody in my theater laughed.
Yeah. At the end of the movie.
I think it was at the end of the movie.
I think it was at the end of the movie.
Yeah, I think it was at the end, and it was a genuine, supposed to be a good standoff, but then like a thing that it wasn't really tumbleweed though. It was like a
I'm forgetting what it was, but I know what you're talking about.
Related.
We all laughed.
Just starts rolling across the screen, and you're like, "That's ridiculous."
I know you guys are right, but like something's telling me that I'm gonna go see this movie and like I'm gonna get punked. Like it's like, haha, it actually sucked.
I don't know. I mean, I know we're closing up this, but as a huge Dragon Age fan. And it definitely has. Yeah, I know it's definitely got more humor than Dragon Age. Dragon Age isn't really a funny game, but it has like some funny characters. This felt like a journey movie, like a movie where a group of RPG characters are on a journey, and I'm like, that's Dragon Age.
You mentioned
I like
Dragon Age in the chat, and that caught my ear. Where I was like, oh, So
yeah,
I
think you'll really like
this movie. I think I will too. I'm being like really weirdly like, oh, I don't know, guys.
No, I mean, I was in the same boat as you until I actually saw it. Like, I mean, I
have a feeling it's a seeing is believing type of situation. So
literally, we're showing trailers, and I was still like, why am I here?
So, but, like, everybody's been talking good about it, even like leading up to it. So it's like, I don't know where my like.
I mean, I was with you, man. I didn't buy it either. I was just like, no way.
I thought they had good casting. The plot is decent, but it's just a fun movie. If you go into it going, I just want fun. I don't want anything deep or cool. You're not getting. This isn't Lord of the Rings. This is just fun.
Well, I was gonna say my expectations are that Michelle Rodriguez puts in like a Shakespearean level performance. So if that doesn't happen,
you're definitely getting that.
She actually, there's some action sequences in the movie
just
that I was like, oh, somebody's been studying John Wick because she does some really cool stuff, melee action sequences. I'm like,
I don't like the fast movies at all, but like she's had some really good fight scenes in the last couple movies, specifically the last movie, which I hated, FYI.
Yeah.
Where it was like her fighting when they were looking for Han or whatever, and they have that fight like the apartment building or whatever, and I was like, dude, she's fucking kicking ass in this scene,
Yeah.
She
kicks ass in Dungeons and Dragons. She's really the only one that gets
I figured
cool
she takes her. She seems like she probably takes like her stunt work kind of seriously.
Yeah, I think she started as like her first role was like as a in a boxing movie or something like that. Like
I remember in Resident Evil. That's what I remember in the very first Resident Evil movie.
Yeah, I've seen like one of those that she was in. Yeah,
she was in the first one.
Those are trash.
The first one was fine, Jeff, and how dare you?
Yeah, I think I think I watched the first two and then I stopped.
The second movie is all fan service. It's like, you remember this? Yeah. Remember that?
I watched the first one and then I watched like Extinction or some crap. Like it was like
I didn't watch anything beyond two. Like, what was the one where they're in the desert?
Yeah, that's the one I watched.
I 1000% didn't see that one or any of the ones after that. Yeah.
No,
they're all terrible. I'm sorry.
They lost me, and I'm a huge Resident Evil fan.
Same here. Yeah, I was along for the ride in the first like couple movies, and like after the second one ended, I'm like, I'm okay. I don't need to see anymore. Thank you.
We're good here. We're good.
It just didn't feel like Resident Evil. It just felt like action.
No, it felt like Alice the superhero. It felt like Alice the superhero show, and like I wasn't. Yeah. I don't even like Mila Jovovich at all. Sorry, I know people are fans of her, but I'm not a fan.
Especially her director husband who puts her in every movie that he directs.
Oh, you mean the director of those movies?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the only way she gets a job now.
pretty much.
Right.
Anyway, we got to get out of here. So, yeah, thanks again for tuning in. This is our like 5th ending.
Go see
much like
John
John
Wick
Wick
4.
Chapter 4. We are
just
ending
keeps
this movie
going.
at least 6 times. Ending this podcast 6 times. Anyway, thanks for listening, those of you that tune in. Smash that like button and